So I'm recording this right after doing my Insidious The Red Door review, mainly for the reason that I kind of just want to have the movie fresh in my brain while I'm thinking about it right after seeing the movie. And not only that, I have work tomorrow, the day I'm uploading this, and I'm doing a late night shift. I don't finish until midnight, so I've got to record and edit it tonight before going to bed. Shut up, Bone. But yeah, I've kind of got to record and edit it tonight, otherwise it won't be ready for an upload, because I do the night shift, so... Yay! But guys, as of you seeing this, Insidious The Red Door, the 5th entry in the Insidious franchise, will be out at least here in Australian theatres, and tomorrow in theatres in the United States, in the United Kingdom, and everywhere else in the world, I believe. I was lucky enough to see it tonight, and I had a good time with it. I really enjoyed it. It was much better than I thought it would be. I half expected to really dislike it. But I was pleasantly surprised. It's a good directorial debut for Patrick Wilson. He can really direct horror well. But we'll get more into that when I talk about the movie in my ranking of all 5 Insidious movies, from the worst to the best. In this video, we're going to be doing what I've done many times on the channel, whether it's the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the DCEU, whether it's the Child's Play movies, whether it's Jeepers Creepers, Halloween, you name it. I'll be ranking all 5 Insidious movies from the worst to the best in my opinion. Remember guys, this is my opinion. I understand we all have our own perspectives on film. Film is subjective. You're entitled to your opinion. I'm entitled to mine. I guarantee no one is going to fucking agree with me on my ranking. Okay? We sure with that? We got it? Cool. Because I understand people can be pretty opinionated when it comes to these sorts of things, and the whole, I'm right, you're wrong, oh, you have it here, well, fuck you, bitch, you know nothing. Again, it's my opinion. You're entitled to yours, I'm entitled to mine. Fuck off. But we're going to be ranking Insidious, Insidious 2, Insidious Chapter 3, Insidious The Last Key, and Insidious The Red Door. This is such an inconsistent franchise as far as I'm concerned, but I do enjoy at least 3 of them, for the most part. 3 of them I would pop it at any time. The other 2, well, not so much. But I don't want to waste your time. I want to jump right in. Let's get into it. Coming in at number 5 as the worst movie, not the weakest, the worst movie. I genuinely really don't like this movie, and that is Insidious The Last Key. Now, Insidious The Last Key is a movie that does have a lot of potential and interesting ideas. Following Elise and everything, going back to her childhood home, where she then encounters... I don't know, they were her family, I'm going to say family. But family members now in this home where they're being tormented by the same demon that was sort of there during a very abusive childhood where she eventually got out of there and everything. Exploring Elisa's backstory, her treacherous past, as well as the traumatic experience her and her brother went through as children was an interesting idea that could have been very investive. It could have been very insightful to her character, but unfortunately that potential is all wasted in a movie that is directed by the guy who wrote Paranormal Activity: The Ghost Dimension. I'm sure he's a nice guy. I'm sure he has a lot of potential as a filmmaker, but between this and The Ghost Dimension, he really has improved himself. This movie is written and directed in such a way where it feels like a made-for-TV midnight premiere special. The dialogue is all over the place. It feels cringy. It feels corny. It feels like a high school play. The certain interactions don't make this family really feel like a family per se. The directing is odd in this movie, the editing as well. There are some cool sound design choices in this movie, I'll give it that, especially that iconic scene that we all knew from the trailer, especially where the key finger went into the girl's neck, who was played by the same girl who played Kmart in those really shitty Paul W.S. Anderson Resident Evil movies. Nothing against the actress by any means, I just hate the Kmart character. But at the same time, that sound effect where the key sort of locks her throat and she can't speak or say anything. There's some cool stuff done with sound design in this movie, like all the Insidious movies as a matter of fact. But man, the creature design, I wish I could make out what the fuck it looked like, because this is such a dark movie on a visual level. Not thematically, visually. It felt like at times I was watching Alien vs. Predator Requiem with how dark and dim this movie looks. Sometimes it is very hard to make out what is going on. And overall, with an interesting concept, it really doesn't do much with that. The scares are very lackluster. Not even a jump from me with a fake scare. Like, this movie has some of the worst fake scares I've seen in a horror movie in a while, and even they wouldn't get me, like the cheap, shoddy jump scares. No, it's sort of just boring. Coming in at number 4 is going to be Insidious Chapter 2, the first unpopular opinion on this list, and definitely not the last, if I will say so myself. Insidious Chapter 2 is not a movie I despise. It's also not a movie I necessarily like either. It's one of those weird movies where I sit there and I'm like, If it's on, I'll watch it. Like, if it's on TV late at night, I'll sit down, I'll give it a watch. I own the Blu-ray, but I'm not going to willingly sit down, pop in the disc, and be like, yeah, let's watch Insidious Chapter 2, which really bums me out to say, because James Wan, as a director, even proves himself once again in this movie to have such an eye for the camera and a great way to build suspense and tension. This should have been a great sequel, considering the cliffhanger and the big reveal that happens at the end of Insidious 1, where Josh turns out that he's been taken over. He's, just like Dalton, sort of stuck in the further. It's not Josh that is actually tormenting the family and chasing them around with a baseball bat or wanting to bash Dalton's head in with a hammer. No, it's the woman that was haunting him from his childhood. And knowing that and seeing Elise die at the end of the last movie by his hands, quote unquote, it should have been interesting. It should have been a great horror movie if you just kept it to what it was in the first one, but upped the scares and vamped up the pacing a tiny bit, because we already had that slow pace first half in the first half of, Insidious 1. We should have had a great horror sequel that would have been a great duology, a great double feature to watch back to back. But unfortunately, this movie is littered and sprinkled with cringy humor. The scares are, while the suspense and tension is there, they feel very lazy almost. The acting, it sort of just feels like people didn't care in this movie anymore. And it's only for so long I can get along with the idea that an old dead woman is taking over a living man's body because he's stuck in an alternate dimension with paranormal entities. Like, it's really creepy at first. It's very creepy. But it sort of gets old after a while, and with the very cringy humor and all that, it sort of tries to go for that Evil Dead 2 sort of thing, just without the wacky, bombastic, sort of physical, hyperbolic humor at the same time. What the fuck was I trying to say there? It tries to be very hyperbolic and everything, and it tries to be over the top. It just was missing that, though. Evil Dead 2 did it so well as a sequel, but Insidious Chapter 2, I feel like could have worked and really benefited from that, because cringy humor that really doesn't land didn't help. The tension and the atmosphere definitely wasn't as effective as it was in the first movie. It just also isn't as interesting. Coming in at number 3 is going to be Insidious The Red Door, the newest entry in the Insidious franchise. This is a movie I went into, if you saw my review. I didn't really expect much. The trailers really didn't impress me. It's 10 years after the events of Insidious Chapter 2. I sort of was like, oh, we're doing another one of these, huh? I kind of had no idea that it was coming out. The marketing was all over the fucking place. Like, I barely saw anything on it. I don't think it's been screened for many people whatsoever for press. As of me recording this, there's no proper press reviews or anything out there yet. There's nothing on Rotten Tomatoes. There's nothing on any big news outlets for reviews of movies. None. Nada. Nil. So I don't know what's going on with the fucking marketing for this movie, or even the publicity side of things in regards to reviews and receptions and early screenings. There's been nothing thus far. I saw it at a public screening. So I don't know what's going on, because this is a pretty good movie. I really enjoyed Insidious The Red Door. It has a very personal, very relatable story between Dalton and Josh in regards to their separated and very distant bond as father and son, and something that is also explored between Josh and his father that sort of fucked off years ago, kind of, really not, yeah, no spoilers obviously. But at the same time, it's got a very relatable story that I think a lot of people will connect with. I also think that the scares really go back to what made the first Insidious movie, I'm going to say the first and the third, sorry, really special. It is very tension filled. It uses the camera, like the cinematography, as well as the lighting and the locations and the atmosphere to really ramp up the suspense and the tension. It really works out well. So therefore, there are no fake scares, but real scares. Yeah, they're jump scares, but they are things you're meant to be scared of, and there is build up in atmosphere and tension leading up to that moment. There is some creepy imagery. There are a couple moments in this movie as well that really stick with you by the time the credits roll, as scenes where you're like, oh fuck, yeah, that sent shivers up my spine. They're not, oh, I'm going to close the door or I'm going to leave the lights on levels of scary like Insidious 1 and 3 in my opinion, but it was still very uncomfortable. The score, for the most part of this movie, wasn't as, interesting or memorable or iconic as the string orchestral scores from the first 3 movies. And not only that, I do feel like it has a bit of a pacing issue, and the quick succession of scares and jump scares and atmosphere, like, oh, this moment here and this moment there, it happens too frequently in quick succession that it does get old after a while. But overall, Insidious The Red Door is a good time. It's by no means the best, it's by no means the worst. I'd I'd see it again. I really would. Go check it out. Coming in at number 2, my next unpopular opinion is Insidious. The first Insidious. Yeah. I just rewatched this movie, like the rest of them, of course, but I rewatched it with my sister, and I've got to say, I'm excited to post that video for you guys, because it is a reaction coming soon. It's just going to take some time to edit, obviously, but at the same time, the first half of the movie is fucking phenomenal. The slow pace with the occasional scare here and there, you questioning what the fuck is going on. So many moments that genuinely creep you out, and what I love the most about this movie is the follow through, where there's certain moments where it's like knocking on the door early in the movie and the fire alarm, the security system goes off, and then you're like, what the fuck is setting this off? What demon fuckery is this? And then later on, you find out it's actually Patrick Wilson as Josh in the further setting this off and doing all these, and it's really cool to understand how the further works. This was a stepping stone, definitely, for a franchise of paranormal movies, but at the same time, one that deserved a franchise, in my opinion, because there are so many rules, so many laws in regards to how the further and everything else with astral projection works, and it is so effective, so creepy. That orchestral score, I remember the first time I saw certain imagery in this movie, and the first time I heard that score, it shivers, immediate shivers up my spine. So creepy, so uncomfortable, and it has stuck with me and become one of my favorite horror movies to watch with friends or family, especially when we're drunk, because getting scared while drunk makes a lot of people throw up, apparently. But no, I really have nothing to bash this movie for. It's mainly the fact that when it gets like really out there and they go into the further and it's really high octane at the end of the movie or the third act more than anything else, it's not as interesting as the first half, but I will say it's more exciting, whereas the first half isn't as exciting, but is more interesting and invested and is scarier, in my opinion. Not only that, this movie has Darth Maul, so it gets props for that. And coming in at number 1 as my favorite Insidious movie, I know that this is like the most unpopular fucking opinion in the world when it comes to Insidious movies, but Insidious Chapter 3, man. I love this movie. I seriously love Insidious Chapter 3. I always bounce back and forth whether Insidious or Insidious Chapter 3 is my favorite. But after my rewatch in the quick succession over the last like week and a half, I can positively say Insidious Chapter 3 is my favorite Insidious movie, and what it does so well is the fact that, in my opinion, it does everything the first movie does. Proper tension, proper suspense, proper atmosphere, great musical score, the great use of the camera, the lighting, the location being so secluded and very, very tucked away from random civilization. Like, you look at the first Insidious and you go, oh fuck, shit's happening, I can run out the door. No. They're in an apartment in this one where they have to go down an elevator or they have to go down a staircase, like Evil Dead Rises here. You kind of have to jump out a fucking building to be able to get public help. So there's a seclusion aspect, but also the vulnerability. I love the fact that it incorporates everything the first movie did so well. It's slow paced at the beginning and more interesting and impactful, but is more exciting towards the later part of the movie. At the same time, though, the vulnerability of literally having a protagonist who has broken legs, broken arms, a broken neck, who is somehow summoned because she's a fucking idiot, but for understandable reasons. Her mother died 18 months ago and they were close, give it a fucking rest. But she summoned this demon who can't fucking breathe, who hides in her vents. Tell me that shit isn't scary. Hiding in your vents and you just hear from the fucking ventilation system like, motherfucker, you got Darth Vader hiding in your vent, but he looks like a fucking burn victim. Fuck. Like, seriously, I love the design. It's so simple. I don't necessarily need to know where the fucking entity came from, what fucking happened to him. I don't give a shit that she's all of a sudden able to overpower him and everything, and getting rid of him is just taking off the mask. I don't give a fuck about that. It's a fun, exciting movie. The younger brother, the fucking sister, Quinn, and the father, they feel like a real family who have gone through a tragedy. Her wanting to get into her ideal art school, fuck off, that's the new one, that's Red Door. Theater school, where James Wan plays the theater director. Like, what a cameo. Lee Winnell with his directorial debut. This movie's fucking awesome. I don't get why people don't like this movie. There are a lot of people who like Insidious that really don't like Chapter 3, and I personally don't fucking understand it. But that's just my opinion. Like, you're all entitled to your own opinion, as I said at the beginning of the video. I just really liked Insidious Chapter 3, guys. I think this is a brilliant horror movie that is brilliantly directed by Lee Winnell once again. Once again, this was his directorial debut. He didn't do Upgrade until, like, 3 years later. Upgrade's a really good movie too, by the way. You should definitely check it out if you haven't. But either way, that's my ranking of all 5 Insidious movies. So from worst to best, it's Insidious The Last Key, Insidious Chapter 2, Insidious The Red Door, Insidious Chapter 1, Insidious Chapter 3. In reality, the first, second, third, and fifth movie, I could watch at any point. The only one that I just don't care for at all is The Last Key. But guys, what do you think? Have you seen the new Insidious movie yet? If you have, comment down below. Let me know what you think, or are you excited for it? Also, comment down below what your ranking of the Insidious movies will be. This will be interesting to see because I feel like everyone kind of agrees on the placement of these movies, but I'm just different because I'm built different. I just have to be a special boy like my mother said I am. But either way, guys, thank you all so much for watching. Look out for more videos coming very, very soon. Make sure to click the subscribe button and the bell to get notified when new videos are up every single week, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care.